Hello, welcome to the second edition of Interactive Ontario's Black Youth Action Plan Hiring Fair. My name is Lucie Lalumière. I'm the president of Interactive Ontario. We're a non-for-profit organization representing the exciting video game and interactive digital media industry in Ontario. But before I go further, I want to convey something very important. Interactive Ontario recognizes that our work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories across the province. We acknowledge that there are 46 treaties and other agreements that cover Ontario. We are thankful to be able to work and live in these territories. We are grateful to the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have cared for these territories since time immemorial and who continue to contribute to the strength of Ontario. Thank you. So this land acknowledgement leads me to also thank the Ontario Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism, as well as Ubisoft Toronto. Their support was essential in realizing this hiring fair and the upcoming panel this morning. So the video game and interactive digital media sector is growing, and we need you. We need people with all sorts of expertise for internships, jobs, and contracts. The positions, they range from animators, graphic designers, game designers, creative directors, QA testers, software engineers, virtual reality developers, music composers, audio and sound engineers, project managers and coordinators, producers, marketers, communication and social media specialists, HR managers, accountants, and so many more. So the next 2 days will provide you with opportunities to connect with many employers of the video game and interactive digital media industry in Ontario. And we will kick it off with a great panel of professionals in the video game sector. They will share with you their experience and discuss their careers. So I'll pass it on to Hannah Johannes, our wonderful program leader in charge of Interactive Ontario's Black Youth Action Plan initiatives. Anna.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today at the Black Youth Action Plan Hiring Fair. I would like to start off with an African proverb that states, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. We're so excited to gather here collectively today to support each and every one of you on your career journey in the video game and interactive digital media industry. It takes courage and a leap of faith to take that first step, and we believe that the sky is the limit when it comes to your success. Before we go further, I want to touch on some housekeeping items. The panel discussion today will last for about an hour, followed by a 20-minute Q&A. Our panelists will address as many questions as possible during that time frame. We'll be wrapping up at 12 noon at Eastern Time, and please use the Ask a Question green button at the bottom right of your screen to ask any questions during the chat and during the event. If you need support, please go to the general chat and you'll see the contact information pinned at the top. Please keep in mind, this is a virtual and non-judgmental space, and we like respect during the process. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator today, Carl-Edwin Michel. Carl-Edwin is a tech and video game enthusiast, as well as the founder and CEO of Northern Arena Productions, a TV and interactive production company. Northern Arena Inc. is one of Canada's biggest esports organizers. Carl-Edwin Michel has always also been reporting on high-tech and gaming industry since 2009 as a freelance journalist, lecturer, radio, and TV personality. We're pleased to have this remarkable man today. And on that note, I'll pass on the mic and turn this over to you, Carl, to introduce the panel. Take it away.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing great today. So welcome to the Black Youth Action Plan Hiring Fair. My name, again, Carl-Edwin Michel, and I will be your moderator and host for this panel today. This panel is going to be really, really practical and will be more of a deep dive into our panelists' career so they can share insight or inspiration they learned from their journey in the interactive digital media sector. So when we talk about the interactive digital media sector, we include obviously video game studios, but also VR, AR companies, e-learning companies, creative agencies, digital media companies, and many more. So we have great panelists with us today, and I want to introduce them to you. The first one is Joanne Pollard, brand manager at Madden NFL game from EA, Electronic Art. We have Roderick Nevers, a software engineer at Snowed In Studios. We have Shaun Jennings, technical art director at Ubisoft. So I would like to give them like just a moment, less than a minute, just to present themselves and talk to you guys about what they do, who they are, and would love to start with Joanne. Joanne, how are you today?
I am doing great, Carl-Edwin. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
As Carl-Edwin said, I work at Electronic Arts as a brand manager. I've been there for about 4 years, and I've actually had a few different careers in the time that I've been there. I have marketing experience for almost 20 years, and I'm happy to share my journey and share, answer any questions you all may have.
Fantastic. That's great. Thanks, Joanne. And what about Roderick?
Hi, my name's Roderick Nevers, and I'm working at Snowden Studios as a software engineer. I've been doing that for about 5 years now, but I've been in the industry for about 10 years, doing various roles, game design and QA and content management. So it's great to be here and be able to talk to you guys and see what's up.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks for that. And Shaun?
Hi, thank you for having me. So my name is Shaun Jennings. I'm a technical art director at Ubisoft Toronto. I've been making video games for roughly about 15 years. What is technical art direction? Well, really, that's what's technical art because we're a whole job family. So we're essentially a bridge between the technical expertise and the creative expertise. And sometimes we get to be mad scientists, sometimes we get to be bug fixers, and we get to be troubleshooters and problem solvers. So it's a really sort of holistic role.
Fantastic. That's awesome. You see, great panelists today. I love this. This is awesome. So we're going to have a great time. Okay, so I want to start right away with some questions for you guys. I'm going to start with the easy ones, the more general questions. So to all three of you, how does someone start a career in brand management, software engineer, or technical art director? So let's start with Shaun.
Oh, I love this question. So there's so many options around now that weren't around, at least that I didn't know about when I was first starting out. So for starters, I would say on the education side, build a core skill, either computer science or art, and get really good at it. The second thing is just start doing stuff, start building projects, start building practical skills. And then number three, I would just, look for opportunities, but don't necessarily look for the big job, but look for both. So look for a QA opportunity, even like various game testing opportunities, just get in the door, get interfacing with the teams, and then build from there. Because experience is key, because you're going to be doing a lot of sort of troubleshooting and anticipation. And so it's just a whole lot of different things.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for the answer. And maybe Joanne.
Yeah, so I would say that if you want to get a job in marketing, you have to understand marketing fundamentals. So take classes around marketing, and ask questions, talk to people who are in the space that might be doing things that you're doing, and get clear on what you're really interested in, because there are so many different directions that you can go in with marketing. You can work in communications, you can do campaign activations, which is like the commercials, you can work with athletes. You don't necessarily have to have a strong video game foundation if you're working at Electronic Arts, for example, but you do have to understand marketing, and you have to understand what exactly it is that you want to do within that marketing space. The easiest way, I think, to get into electronic arts is to do so through our internship program. So you don't have to know everything at that point in time. You don't have to say, oh, this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. You just have to say, I'm interested in a thing and I'd like to try it out for a summer. And for our internships, we have real jobs, right? Like, it's not, hey, I need the intern to get me coffee. This is a real job that has business impact where you're going to learn and you're going to see whether or not this is something that you're actually interested in.
That's great. Thanks for that. Roderick?
Yeah, so to be a software engineer, that's coding for those who are not familiar. Going to school for software engineer, computer science, going to college for a programming course, those are great ways to get started. But you don't have to go to school just to start at all. The world is crazy now. You can go to YouTube, you can get full courses, there are books, there are e-courses online. The best thing to do is just get your hands in there and just find something like Unity, maybe if you like games, or if you want to make websites, just find a course or some tutorials and just start doing it, start messing around, putting just hello world, put a picture on the screen, do anything but a happy face. Just once you do that first thing, you'll put a smile on your face, especially if you don't know what you're doing, just to get started, and you just keep going, just add a little bit more complexity on, and you'll just keep going if you really like it.
That's great. Well, thanks for those answers. This is really awesome. So, second question, still in those general questions at the beginning. What's your day-to-day? Like, what does it mean to be a brand manager or a software engineer, technical art director? Like, what do you do in your day-to-day? And maybe we'll start with Joanne on this one.
Yeah. So one of the things that's really fun about working in marketing and working in brand management is that every day is different. It depends where you are in the life cycle of a game. And for me, working at Madden, we release every single year. So that is kind of a grind. It's unlike many other games that have a 2 or 3 or 4 year life cycle. So what that looks like is you could be working with our consumer insights group to determine who our core audience is, who we're trying to get playing our games. We want to position ourselves in the market to ensure that we are appealing to the group that we want to bring in. We want to get a sense of what our core players want, what they like about our game, what they don't like about our game. We later in the cycle work in live services. So unlike years past or in other industries, we are constantly evolving the game throughout the entire year. So we work very closely with our development team to determine what kind of programs do we want to do. One of the things that's really cool about Madden is that it's a simulation game. So it's reflective of what's actually happening in the NFL. So we've had unique opportunities in the last couple of years with COVID where we actually did the Pro Bowl in game because it got canceled due to COVID. So partnering with the NFL, because that's crucially important for a game called Madden NFL, right? Is ensuring that we have that partnership really, really strong and solid, and that they agree with the direction that we're going in, and that it's a game that's truly reflective of what they're doing. So every day changes just based on the life cycle of the game and what we're trying to accomplish and who our demographic is.
That's great. Thank you. Roderick?
So for me, since the Snowed In, we're a company that works with other companies on their games. So in the mornings, we usually do stand-ups. So it's where all the programmers all on a specific team will get together and we'll talk about what we have to do today. And then we have tasks that are laid out for us that are in sprints, that are just like chunks of time that we need to get a certain amount of things done. So the project can move ahead. At the moment, right now, I'm actually working on a tools team that works with artists, so like people with Shaun. So we make tools that help them make their job easier and whatnot. So you basically, so once you start doing your work, you might have questions. So I might have to go, Shaun, like, hey, I'm working on this and I don't really understand this part of your job, but so I need you to explain how this works so I can help make the tool work for you and whatnot. So, and you kind of go back and forth and, keep an open dialogue, and it's a good time.
Cool. Shaun?
Well, I resonate with both of your explanations. So my answer is a bit of a hybrid. So the day-to-day of a technical artist will change depending on where we are in the project cycle. I'd say that my favorite part, or the most energetic part, is the earlier, like sort of mid pre-production, early production. And this is where you really get to sort of collaborate with people, take like some crazy idea that a director has and figure out how to make it materialize and realize their vision. So then this could be collaborating with concept artists, collaborating with artists on the floor, or collaborating with Roderick or people in Roderick's position. So the day-to-day is sort of similar in a sense that there's always going to be some sort of sync up or some sort of kickoff. Like if we're really in a deep prototyping phase, then we could have daily stand-ups, and the cycles tend to be very agile in nature. From there, at some point, hopefully you get a chance to sit at your desk and take in all that information and start working through whatever it is. Oftentimes it depending on what sort of process or aspect of the team you're supporting. So the day-to-day of a technical artist that's supporting like a prop team that builds all your digital assets, like your chairs and your racks and all that stuff. It's a lot of a support role. It sometimes looks almost like an IT role where people are going to be checking in with you. How do I build this? Doing like tech validations. Is this performing well? Does this have the right amount of triangles? Are there any artifacts being created by this? And something like that. So it can be a bit of a mismatch. So I think that.
So to resume all of that, Joanne, I guess you're working closely with more as a client, like the NFL, for example, right? Like, so working a lot with the brand, as Roderick and Shaun are working closely with the development team and the engine. Does that make sense?
Well, I actually work very closely with the development team as well, because they're the ones that execute on kind of our 3-year vision. Like, this is the direction we want to go in. So I can give you a quick example. We wanted to change the way that people looked at Madden. If you look at our cover art from 3 or 4 years ago, you see, these rough NFL players, their helmets are on, and it's just kind of this tough impression that people get. And we wanted to really lean into the athletes more and get their personalities. So now you see them with their helmets off. You see them smiling in some of the commercials and some of the marketing material that we do. You see their personalities. You see Juju making jokes and things like that. So it was kind of an initiative that started with brand to change the impression that people have of Madden NFL. And then, of course, because we're working with the athletes, we have to get buy-in from the NFL because they look at Madden as a property that they're invested in as well.
Definitely. Good. Great. All right, so I want to jump to another question. What are several pathways that one can explore to obtain skills and knowledge that are applicable to becoming either a brand manager, a software engineer, or a technical art director? We'll start with Shaun on that one.
I love this. So I would almost break it down into 3 points. Education is number 1. Community is number 2. And then application, I would say, is number 3. So education, I talked about a little bit before. Pick a core skill, whether it be computer science or art, focus on that, master that. Number 2, community. So then now this is one of the really cool things about today is the internet. Like as Roderick mentioned earlier, there's a lot of great YouTube training and master classes and all kinds of skill shares and everything out there that you can learn core skills. So from there, the community also extends to organizations like SIGGRAPH, GDC, the IDGA. One thing I know, like IDGA Toronto chapter, is they have a lot of like free sessions, meet and greets, and whatnot, as well as paid lectures where you can go, even as a student, interact with professionals like us here, and then learn and sort of build knowledge. Another part of community is more of an execution aspect where it's really about doing. So then you can do your own projects and then work with things like the area on Autodesk.com, or even like ArtStation is nice, and then just kind of interact with various online communities and build knowledge and work your way, answer questions. Stack Overflow is a really big one with programming and tech art and writing scripts for things. And then, or the other one is like also looking into getting into various game communities that are building mods, and or even indie groups that are building software. This will give you the practical skills that will arm you to have a strong interview once you get to us. And then also, once you get into the door, you might be surprised on how much you've learned. And sometimes you can hit the ground running and just go. We do have an internship program as well. We call it Ubisoft NXT, which is a contest in a way where you can they have different disciplines with tech art, computer science, across the board, concept art as well. If you win the internship, it's paid, and you actually get to do real work on the production. You get a credit and everything. So those are some things that you can do to start and get into the industry.
That's great. Thanks for that, Shaun. Joanne, pathways to being in marketing and brand management.
You know, I completely agree with Shaun with the education piece. You know, it's just a function of taking classes, and there's so much free information out there as well. You can take a class on brand on Coursera for free, you know, but I truly believe that understanding marketing fundamentals is really important. And then just staying abreast of what's happening across the industry. What Shaun mentioned with GDC is equally relevant in any role that you have. If you're interested in video games, if you are interested in marketing in particular, Adweek is a subscription that I would recommend. If people are in school, a lot of times schools have those subscriptions already, so you can leverage your schools for that, and just get an idea of what other companies are doing. What are other companies doing? What do you like? What appeals to you? And being able to speak on those things at an interview, I think, is really important. If you can get the experience through an internship, or you know, even if you have your own kind of side project, I think there's a lot of value in doing the thing. So if you have a YouTube channel, or if you try out, you know, TikTok, because that's the new thing that's happening, and you know, being able to leverage something that maybe someone who's a little older like me wouldn't necessarily know how to do, but that's something that you bring to the table because it's new, it's got a following, and you can do it, but I can't. So you know, bring that skill set to the table too.
Thank you for that, Joanne. Roderick, some pathways?
Yeah, so Shaun and Joanne said a lot. There's not much I can add to that, but I would say if you're a coder, you want to be a software engineer, as you start your journey, you're going to do a lot of tutorials, you're going to read some books, and you're going to start coding your own way, and you're going to kind of get set in your path. I would suggest getting used to reading other people's code and understanding other people's code. And even though you can learn everything on your own, going to school will help you learn better ways to code, because there is, even though a lot of people say that, you know, you can code in so many different ways and whatnot, there are preferred things to do and preferred things that you don't do. It's just like reading, you know, someone that's crazy handwriting, you know, like a crazy doctor's note, and you have to read that, and you know, you can't read anything. And same thing can go with your code. If someone has to look in your code and then just look at it, and they're just like, I barely can tell what's going on here, and they're getting a headache just by looking at a few things like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is a rookie mistake. You're gonna find some rough roads. So start looking for ways to learn about clean code, look online for, you know, what are some pitfalls of like rookie programmers, what are experienced senior programmers, what do they look for, what's good and what's not, and then start aiming your education towards what you can find as excellence, as an example of what you could be doing, what you can't be doing. Because any language you can learn, but the patterns and how you put it together can be applied to anything. So, yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, if anybody have questions for our panelists, please put them in the comment section, and later on I'll be asking some of those questions. So, but let's go a little bit more practical when it comes to not just pathways, but like the articles or books or courses or any resources, YouTube videos that you recommend to someone to get into the door. Do you have some specific examples that you can share? And I'll start with you, Roderick, if that's okay.
Yeah, there's some books out there. You can Google Clean Code. That's a book that should kind of show you different ways of how you can make your code and structure it better. I use that as a guide.
And also, and sorry to interrupt, Roderick. Yeah. We'll put those in the chat also, so you'll be able to follow. And I know if you want to hear more and have more information specifically on those resources, Interactive Ontario will be able to share those with you. Sorry, Roderick, you can go for it.
Yeah, no problem. So that was one of my main guides. I use Unity a lot in my personal time, so I pay attention to their documentation. But I will give you a preface though, even though it's their official documentation, there are a lot of little pitfalls that are in some of their tutorials that, because they're written by all sorts of different people. So you do have to kind of be careful on making sure that what they write is not, it's not always gospel, but it's a good starting point. A lot of tutorials are great starting points. And then you kind of have to, with experience, unfortunately, you're gonna have to figure out you have to figure out how to weed which ones through. It's hard for me to find. I don't really have a YouTuber or whatnot that I follow. Maybe I can find someone, put them up as we put it on their website or whatnot. A lot of my experience, it just comes from my coworkers. You work with someone and then he's like, oh, this one's brilliant. And you start working, you do code reviews and people just put comments in, and you learn through other people. So even maybe if you work some projects or you're working with some friends, maybe you guys should do some code reviews, suggest do code reviews instead of just submitting it to the repo. That way you guys can look at each other's code and see what you're doing, and you can comment on it. And if someone else says, oh, I don't really like the way you guys do this because it's hard to read or whatnot, you'll start picking up little habits from each other, and that'll help you grow. And that's really all you need. It's just experience, anything else.
Nice. That's good. That's good. Maybe Shaun, do you have some ideas and reference to share?
Ideas, yes. References, I'd say it's a work in progress. I would say for the longer list, follow up with the Black Youth Action Plan and get a bigger list. But off the top of my head, it's always very cause and effect. And so for myself personally, as I learn, I like to have a project or a goal in mind. So you go and look around, build, maybe if you're doing art and you're working in 3D Studio Max or Blender, and there's something that you like to do and it's really tedious, then this is a really good opportunity to learn some coding and learn how to automate that. Stack Overflow is probably one of my favorite places, because oftentimes when you're writing through your code, you're going to hit a wall somewhere, and then it's a good place to sort of start. And I would say sign up for the membership, be part of the community, interact with people there, ask questions, answer questions as your skills get better. And I think that's a good starting place. I think I mentioned IDGA earlier. And I think from a book standpoint, 2 books that I personally like, because I really love thinking about the process. I want to understand how we're doing something. I want to understand why we're doing something. And I want to understand the pathway to getting to a goal. So Creative Inc., I think is the Pixar book. If you Google that, that's a good one. Just kind of gives you an overview of processes as a whole. You've probably read that before, or some of you probably have. I think Design of Everyday Things is more of kind of an artsy, designy book, but it just kind of takes you through a holistic process of thinking about things, or 2 books that come to mind. And then on the technical artist side, your role is supporting the team. So then after you make the cool thing, after you have the prototype and it gets approved, you got to figure out how to put that into production. And so then you start writing tools. And so one thing that I always encourage tech artists to learn is get familiar with at least a basic understanding of user experience design. So on sort of the fringe end, one book that I like reading because it just helps get my mind in the right headspace is Inmates Are Running the Asylum. And it really just sort of deals with the topic of You guys are laughing, making me laugh. It sort of deals with topics that help bridge things and help like understanding the end-to-end things in terms of how requests are born and that sort of evolution of it, and learning how to sort of validate and filter through things is probably a really bad summary of the book, but now I'll have to go back and reread it now.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Shaun. Joanne?
Yeah, as far as resources are concerned, I not necessarily for brand, but just in general, having an understanding of things like analytics. I think that getting a certification in Google Analytics and understanding how users engage with your website and things like that is really useful. HubSpot has a bunch of great free resources in the marketing space. A book that comes to mind because I started reading it recently is Go Luck Yourself. And that is going to help position you in your brand by sharing stories of things that other companies have done. So those are a few quick resources.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. So now I would like to get into more of a deep dive into each of those career and start with you, Joanne, about brand management and marketing. I have two questions, which are probably one as a whole, but so what does a brand management mean for a video game? How do you market a game, or how do you build a brand for a game? And the second one that is kind of attached to it is, what's the difference between being a brand manager in a video game versus another sector?
Yeah, so I would say, and I alluded to this earlier, the main difference between brand management and video game versus any other industry is that live services piece, that connection with the development team, constantly communicating with them to see what type of programming you want to create that is going to pull levers for your players. And it's constantly evolving. So we look at a program that we did last year and say, was that an effective program? Is that something that we want to do again? Or how can we change it? What was the engagement like? We work very, very closely with our product managers to see, did we get a lot of people playing this game? What was the monetization like for Madden Ultimate Team? Do we want to try something new? There's a lot of opportunity for constantly experimenting. I would say that is probably the biggest difference. I think that a lot of brand management work is very strategic. It's very forward looking, and it's not necessarily in the moment the way that it is for video games and the work that I do with Madden in particular.
Good. Awesome. Would like to ask Roderick the next question. And Roderick, what are the skills you require, and what do you need to learn to be a software engineer? I think you touched upon that a little bit earlier, but maybe just a little bit more in depth here. And what advice do you have for someone who is wondering if being a software engineer is right for them?
Okay, some core skills, problem solving as your biggest one. You're going to be, I'm constantly given tasks of things that I have no idea how they work beforehand. So you have to have an open mind as well. Don't be stuck in your rut. So you can't be, if you're an individual who really does not like change or it has a close mind to things, you're going to have a really tough time in this position because things are always changing, especially in the games industry. So you need to have an open mind, be able to problem solve, look at the problem, break it down into pieces, because a lot of times the problems are gigantic and you won't understand. So you got to break it down, like, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? And then you'll probably have to break those down into smaller pieces. You'll have to talk to someone who knows. So if I'm working on tools, so I'd be talking to Shaun per se and be like, what does this mean? What does this mean for you? And then I have to break this down more. And then, you need a lot of patience. If you're in a rush to get anywhere, you're going to run into a lot of you're just going to make your life harder. So patience, and then you just keep going. You start piece by piece. You start building. Keep your ego at home. come to work humble. If you have questions, when you're stuck, always ask, always ask, always ask. If you're at a good company, they will love you for asking. If you sit in your desk and you're having a problem and you're just keeping it to yourself for weeks and weeks and weeks, and everyone thinks you're fine, you're not helping anybody, and you're definitely not helping yourself. So come ask questions, always ask questions, especially for problems you don't understand, and just keep building, just keep hacking at the problem. Eventually, if it's really difficult, they might be able to get someone to help you to help break it down, but you'll probably get through it. I've had problems that I have absolutely no idea beforehand, and you just find a way, just piece by piece, breaking it down, building, reviewing, talking to people, and you'll get through it. So just open mind, humility, problem solving. Sometimes math comes into it. Sometimes it doesn't. don't the programming industry, that often say like you need to love math. You don't always have. You're not making these crazy programs like on the movies where you see all the calculations on the board and you write like that. That doesn't happen. Maybe if you work for like Tesla or something, but in the game industry, you're not doing that very often. So don't worry about that. But don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of things. Open mind. And you should be able to get through. So I think that's about it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Roderick. My other question that is more deep dive, as a technical art director, Shaun, what keeps you on top of technology and video game art? Because obviously the industry is moving so fast. And also my second question for you is, do you do more art or more technical? Like, are you leaning on one side more than the other, or is pretty much even?
Both. So I'm going to answer the questions in the inverse order. For the first question, do I lean in any particular direction personally? I'm a generalist. So then what I'm really about is adapting to the needs of the project. So on the personal end, I love art, and sometimes I miss it because I don't get to do it as often as I'd like to. Sometimes your prototype does ship, and I've had that happen to me a few times over the course of the project, and I'm like, okay, this has to be good. You sort of go back into it. Typically it depends, and there's also different flavors of technical artists, and like as I said, you have to sort of have your core skill, whether that be programming, software development, or art. And so like sometimes we have a TA who's a software developer, but they're actually insanely talented with art, and they could end up doing more art stuff, especially when you start dealing with 3D programming and rendering, like shading development. On the flip side, you could have a guy like me who just loves tools and loves not doing tedious things. And so then you do end up sometimes doing more developing, and then big difference between technical artist and technical director is more of the sort of leadership and the planning and the strategic side of things, is that the technical artist would be more of an owner of a system and they're doing art or some sort of technical implementation, whereas a TD, you do sometimes have to do that, but you're more about helping to shape the production. So I think that's the first part. And the second question was that, how do I keep up to date on current things? So this one is just fun. So you have to kind of love studying a little bit. And like, I don't know if I loved school when I was a student, but I definitely love learning in the practical application here. And so I say community a lot because especially with the internet now, that's kind of the thing. Conferences is a big one. So SIGGRAPH is probably the place for if you want to learn 3D art and see the cool rendering techniques. There's this one segment or series in SIGGRAPH that I really like called Advances in Real-Time Rendering. And it's a little bit of a convergence between feature film, VFX, 3D programming and 3D art, and games. And there's a lot of really interesting concepts. So one really good buzzword you should really learn well is PBR. And just I'll let you guys figure out what that is. Google it and master it. But then one nice thing about COVID situation is that a lot of conferences were forced online. And so a lot of your presenters are doing their talks either pre-recorded or some sort of live stream. So the one really cool fruit of that is that some of the presenters are posting their stuff online for free. So there's a lot of really good talks. So like a couple weeks ago, I was up late watching a really good talk by some of the Unreal Epic developers, and they're talking about Nanite and how they're able to put a bunch of really expensive geometry and make it seem cheap. And call out and do cool things, and artists are really happy because they don't have to optimize their work as much. Substance designer, substance painter, Algorithmic's got a lot of really good talks on there. Look at Facebook as well. So join the Facebook groups for a lot of these key companies, Adobe, Algorithmic, Autodesk, and then they have some really interesting free talks or demonstrations that are out there. Like pretty much all of our stuff just went online for free to some degree. So that's the first one. The second one, which is sort of like a more of a grassroots skills, which I find that I have to brush up on from time to time, is like math. And so one free resource that I use online is called Khan Academy. And then they have like free grade school stuff. They get into like some trig. I think there's linear algebra on there. If you want to learn how to write shaders, go learn linear algebra and learn how to work with matrices and all that fun stuff. And so, yeah, I think those are some things that I do to keep up to date. And it's an ongoing cycle. So the reality is that once you start getting into industry, you don't want to work all the time. You have to balance the work-life balance. And so it's when you get to the point of getting a job, you definitely want to look for companies that will help support you in those efforts. But then also when you're in school, go to your universities. Chances are they have access to a lot of these resources, even some paid resources like Code Academy for under your learning thing. And yeah, sorry, I'm getting tripped up a little bit, but I guess I'll stop there.
No, but that's good. Those are great answers. Thank you, Shaun. Thank you for that answer. Okay, so I would like to go back to more general questions to all three of you. And the first one I have is, what is one lesson you know now that you wish you knew at the beginning of your career? Maybe I can start with Joanne on that one.
Yeah, so the first thing that I would say is actually something that Roderick mentioned earlier, and I co-sign and plus 100 to this one, is ask questions. I was always afraid of asking questions because I felt like, oh, they're going to think I'm dumb if I don't know this. The job that I have right now is probably the one that I got because I asked questions. Essentially, I never think that I know everything or that I'm the smartest person in the room. I am not a gamer. So I already know coming into a work conversation that I am going to know less in that space than a lot of the other people in the room. So just being in the room and asking questions when somebody's doing a presentation, they often think that everybody understands the acronyms, for example. And I just raise my hand and I'm like, what does that mean? And inevitably somebody else in the room doesn't know either. And just through the types of questions that I've asked, people have realized, oh, she's pretty smart because she's asking important things. Before I became a brand manager, I worked on NBA Live as an in-game messaging strategist. So I was working on, it was a really interesting role on the dev team, but as a marketer. And when the company decided not to go live with NBA Live 20, I was out of a job. And so they were able to kind of find a place for everyone who used to work on NBA Live. And I had two opportunities, two completely different opportunities on Madden, either as a product manager, still on the dev team, or in brand management. And the brand management leads came to me and said, hey, we've heard some really good things about you. And we have an opening on this team, and we're interested in finding out whether or not you might want to join us and work on Madden brand. That was a space that I had never worked in before. I've done digital. I've done, I started my career in traditional marketing where we were doing print and conferences, things like that. But I had never worked in brand. And just my reputation for being someone who digs and asks questions is what provided me with that opportunity on this team. So that's double down on Roderick's comment about asking questions. You're not going to look dumb unless, somebody just answered that question because you weren't paying attention. Don't do that.
Great. Well, Roderick, lesson on your side. Something you wish you knew before you started your career.
This is a tricky question because there's so many things. There's so many things that come in and then that happen to you as you're working over the time. But it's hard to say it's a lesson that I knew, but the one thing that has happened to me, I know I've had some bad bad things happen, like being laid off or even being like let go, having being part of mass firings and whatnot. And those are pretty rough. But one thing that's happened out of all of those is my career has advanced like threefold afterwards. And the hardest part, and the lesson that I had to learn was to keep my eyes up and open and looking, even when I'm just sad and just being like, oh, this is like, I lost my dream job as a game designer. Like, it's hard to find a new one, but like even when you go through the like a downturn, try to keep your eyes open and look, because especially when you're working with other people in a company, the people who you're bumping elbows with, love those people. Try to be good with those people. Try to always be on good terms if you can. Don't be fake, but like really try to like, put into them. And hopefully when you're with a good team, it happens automatically, because things arise when everyone's looking. And like my career has been, I didn't think I'd ever work for Snowden Studios, and it came after a really bad time happened at one of my former companies, and now I'm in like a place that I'm infinitely happy to be at. So you really have to try to keep your eyes open and just look for opportunities, look to learn, constantly learn from everything, and try not to focus in and go too inwards. I'm an introvert person, so it's really hard sometimes. So I have to force myself to keep my eyes open and keep talking to people when I don't want to talk to anybody. But you really have to do it, because you will end up in places that you have no idea you would ever be qualified for or even imagine. So that's what I would say.
Good. Thanks for that. Shaun, something you wish you knew when you started your career?
I just want to do a triple shout out to asking questions. I think like one thing that you either when you get out of school, you're like, I know everything. And it's interesting that sometimes that can be helpful, and it can be a blessing and a curse. But also sometimes you're afraid. Like there's the imposter syndrome, and sometimes you're worried that people might think that you're ill-equipped to do your job. And so the problems are very big. And as Roderick said, like sometimes you have to keep a very open mind. And so the lesson that I learned, the most important thing isn't necessarily knowing the answers, but understanding how to find the answers is probably one of the most important things.
Nice. Thank you for that. Okay, another one for you guys. Top tips. What are the top tips that you would say to someone that wants to get into the space? So, hey, Roderick.
Top tips. So we have mentioned it a lot, but I'd say get started. Don't wait for anyone to give you a golden ticket. Say, oh, you've done all this. Now you can start learning. Start learning. If you're 14, go find a YouTube page. Do a Hello World. Put a picture on something, a website, a Unity, whatever. Unreal's free. That's top tier software. I did not have anything close when I was in school. Be able to use like Unreal. So Unreal 3 was just coming out, and that would have cost you like that company probably about $1 million easy just to get an SDK, and you have to work for a AAA studio to even touch it. Now you guys can just download it for free. So I'm going to sound like an old man, but go do it. Whatever. There's so much free. Blender's free. Unity's free. There's free video software. There's free web, and like so much stuff is free nowadays. Like this, just get a computer that's not like a $300 e-machine, and just get started and just dive in. Do one thing. Just do one thing, and put a picture, put some text on the screen. Great, you did it. Now make the text blue. Great, you did it. Now see if you can put it in different spots of the screen. There, you did it, and just keep going step by step. Don't compare yourself to someone else's, like, oh, this guy's been doing it for a year and he's making something that looks like from Pixar. And like, don't compare yourself. Just it's your own progress. It's your own. You're better. You're going to be a better person than you were yesterday. So just go step by step, and just try to find some goals. As Shaun said, because if you want to learn something, say I want to learn how to make a character jump, then figure out what you need to do to make a character jump. Then figure like, oh, I don't know why does it jump weird? Go research stuff like how does the jump in Mario Brothers feel different than the jump that you probably made, and then you'll learn more things. And just keep going, just little goals, little wins, and they just add up in the long run. So just pick a goal and just go for it.
Awesome. Shaun, top tips.
What Roderick said. So number one, do stuff. Grab that free stuff and do stuff as much as possible. And the thing that I would add is start writing about your stuff. And then maybe if you feel confident enough, post it online publicly. So make little videos to throw on YouTube or TikTok. Practice even making your own little tutorials on the thing, explaining what you did and the problem solving process. And if you feel real adventurous, just go ahead and make a blog and post it online and regularly post about it. I can definitely say there's a lot of 3D programmers interacting on Twitter. There's a lot of 3D programmers posting stuff on Twitter, and there's a lot of online communities there. So that's probably the top tip that I would offer.
Good. Joanne, top tips?
I kind of in the same vein of what Shaun and Roderick have said, but they haven't stated it explicitly. Continuous learning is really, really important. I mean, I graduated from college about 100 years ago, and I'm still learning. I still try new things. I still, have to do research. And sometimes I'm just like, I don't have the capacity to do this. But there's a book that I read years ago called The Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck. And it's all about, it's in contrast to fixed mindset, right? So your fixed mindset is when you feel like you're either smart or you're not. You can either do things or you can't. And that's just not the right approach to things. If you have a growth mindset, you know that you can always try. There's always going to be a point where you hit a wall and you're just like, I don't know if I can do a thing. But if you just keep at it, then eventually you will get better and you will continue to improve. And that's really important no matter how long you've been in whatever industry you're in. My current role, even though I'm a brand manager for Madden, I've been in a rotation program for the last roughly 8 months. And what that looks like is I did a rotation on our global events team, and I had to come up with a 3-year strategy to make our events accessible to the disabilities community. Mm-hmm. And so I had to do a lot of research. I had to learn what does good look like at an event. I came up with a strategy. I worked with an agency to come up with a business plan. I did all of these things that were not part of my day job. And even though I've been very, very involved in our employee resource groups at EA, the disabilities community is not one that I'm familiar with. So it was a huge learning curve for me. And now I am working on our Positive Play team. And Positive Play is a new team that was established to help combat toxicity in gaming. And nobody on the team knows anything about it because nobody's working on this stuff. So again, a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of learning about psychology, how toxicity impacts people, how we can combat it. So just, continuous learning is really important no matter how old you are or how long you've been doing a thing, especially when you work in tech and it moves at the speed of light and things are constantly changing and evolving.
That's true. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for those. Okay, so I have another question, but I just want to let you know that we are going to go to the Q&A right after my last question. I have a bunch of questions for you guys from the audience, so this is really cool. If you do have more questions, any questions, please put them in the comment section, and then they will share it with me. The guru behind the scene, the technical crew behind the scene will share them with me. And shout out to them, by the way. Great job. Thank you. So yeah, my last question to you guys. Obviously, we've talked a lot about brand management, software engineer, technical art director, but the video game industry is having like a phenomenal growth at the moment, and there's many more career in the industry. So my question to you is, could you name a few of them that could inspire the audience that maybe want to do something different or are just not aware of the type of job or other job available in the industry? So can you help us with that? And maybe I'll start with Shaun on that one.
So in the realm of technical art, it's almost like game design, where there's a lot of sort of diverse walks of life that find their way into the role. I can definitely say that looking out at the industry, everything from watching rockets, literally like NASA rocket scientists end up in tech art roles, doing very specialized things, to botany experts showing up in technical art roles and curating like vegetation for the game and eventually growing into a larger technical art role. It does come down to sort of your fundamental skill sets, and then being open-minded enough to explore how those skill sets can be applied. With the introduction of Unreal Engine 4 being free and Blender being free, one of the really cool things that are happening is you're watching a lot of the game skill sets expand into other industries that aren't just games. So I think there's a lot of potential there. So you really just pick a specialty under art. We have a lot of disciplines. So then you start with character team, need a technical artist there. VFX team, need a technical artist there. Pick up some math while you're on the way. Prop arts team, a lot of like just general support, planning, being strategic, and just ad hoc problem solving. World building, you need technical art there, especially with procedural techniques using tools like Houdini. So I think there's a lot of options available, and there's also different flavors of the role, being sort of the expert role where you get to go and sit in your corner and just master a thing, as averse to being the more communication role where you're sort of doing a bit of both. You're mastering some technical thing, but you're also interacting with people, and that can be very gratifying as well.
Nice. Awesome. Joanne?
Sure. I'll start with some of the jobs that were surprising to me when I got into the industry. We work with UX researchers. When I found out that I worked with people who had PhDs, I was like, what? So that was really cool. Let's see. Any job that you have in any other industry, you have in games as well. So what I mean by that is finance, HR, marketing, all of those, normal things that you see everywhere else, you see in gaming as well. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a big one right now across all industries, because every company has a lack of people of color in leadership roles, and they are trying to address that. So that's a space that there's a lot of opportunity in. Product managers, program managers. One of the things that's really interesting in product management is that no matter what company you go to, it's like a little bit different. So if you're interested in product management and program management, you really have to do research on that company to see what it means to them. So I'll leave Roderick to come up with a few more.
There you go. Leave a little bit for Roderick. Come on.
Sounds good. I know I've been talking a lot about like visual stuff, but as an engineer, there are many, you don't have to like pictures. You don't have to like anything creative. In terms of art, you can like just data. There's, there's there's database, there's server, there's complete backend, where it's just moving data around. And then there's other sides that are just almost pure front end that work with stuff like Shaun does. But at the same time, maybe you start working as an engineer and you realize you don't want to be in the trenches the whole time. You might want to branch out to be a project manager. Some of the best project managers I've ever worked with were former artists or former devs, and they tend to work out really well because they actually know the work. So when they have to go and spec things out, you get a little bit more of they know what they're doing. They have a little bit more experience to know, like, if this should take 3 weeks versus this should take 3 days. There's I had something, I just went blank on it, but so I'll probably just leave it like that for now.
Since you went blank, I just remembered a couple more. So within our marketing team, we have our commercial team, and they work with Microsoft, with Sony, with the third parties that we collaborate with in order to bring our games to market, and then esports as well. A lot of our games have gotten into that space recently, and we even have production now. We recently had a Sims reality TV show called Sparked that came out. So television production, all of that exists within the video game space as well.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Don't forget about writing. Sorry, I'm just going to cut you. Don't forget about writers.
There you go.
Writers, you need people to write the content that you read on the screen. Good writers, good voice actors. This is a couple others just popped in.
Yeah, there's a lot that says it all. That said it all. That's great. Okay, so I want to jump into the audience questions. It's we're jumping into the Q&A side. I have a lot, so I'll try to see if I can go through all of them. So the first one is for everybody. What's the best career decision you made? That's for all the panelists. What's the best career decision you made? Shaun.
Oh, that's a good one. I think when I finally decided to sort of just kind of dive in, because like I had a lot of unique opportunities starting out, like interacting with conferences and things, and you're sort of blessed to have different people that are speaking wisdom into your life and offering advice and sort of mentoring you along the way. And I was very apprehensive, and I think I spoke a little bit about the imposter syndrome earlier. And one of the best career advice was just to get out there and try. So like an old friend used to tell me, your chances of getting a job go up substantially when you finally decide to apply. So I think that's probably for me one of the best career decisions that I started.
Nice, well said. Roderick, best decision.
So I have a couple. So one of them actually happened before I even got in the industry. I was in school and I was in my third year and I was doing economics, and I decided a new program called Interactive Multimedia came around, and I just cut the cord and I said, I'm going to go and apply to this. And I didn't even get in the first year. I had to wait another year. So I went like part-time for a bit. So that completely changed my life. And it was one of those things where people are saying, stay and finish. But that was the best thing I ever did, because some of the people that I met in that program, I've worked for, they've made their own companies, which I've worked for. And some of them have been, amazing friends, great artists. And, it was a great class just to be in. Like if I wasn't in that class, I don't even know what my life would be like. It's incredible. Then when I can go back and think about it. So that was, follow your dreams, try to go towards what you should go towards, if you can. And that was probably one of the best things. And another one was, if even in your position, try to be humble and put your pride away. Another time I went to a job, I took a pay cut, and I was like, no, I really want to I should work with these people, don't put all that stuff away. And I did, and it was one of the best jobs I've had. Brought me all sorts of places around the world, and I was able to work on projects and things that I never would have done. And it was totally a great growth period, and it's crucial to where I am today. So humility and try to go for your dreams if you can. Excellent.
Nice. Thank you for that, Roderick. Joanne, best decision.
Yeah, I think the best decision that I made was to lean into the things that I am actually good at. A lot of times people say to, identify gaps and areas where you need to improve and really focus on that. And I did that for a long time, but there are things that I am naturally good at, and strengthening those things further has made me a standout in some spaces. So that's I think that what I would do and what I would recommend is to, sure, there's always areas where we can all improve upon, and we should, but the things that you're really good at, get even better at them. And stop undervaluing the things that you're good at. One thing for me that I seriously undervalued was my communication and writing skills, because every job requisition you've ever seen says needs to have exceptional writing and communication. And so I just felt like, oh, well, everybody has that. Not so. So I've learned that this is a skill that I really have. Not everyone has it, even though it's on every requisition in the world, and really value those things that I'm good at.
That's great. Thank you, Joanne. Okay, so another question from the audience, and this one is directly to Roderick. To inspire developers out there, any particular coding tools, sites that you would recommend?
Oh boy. There's coding. Coding is huge. A site. one that Shaun has mentioned a bunch of times. You can chime in and say it again if you want, Shaun.
Stack Overflow?
Yeah, there you go. Stack Overflow. Actually, I'll say Google. When you have questions, Google it. If you have a teacher in here and they're, telling you guys not to Google your answers, I'm sorry, Google your answers because someone has come up with the answer already. Just go and learn how they got there and apply that knowledge to yourself. But you really need to, that's a really giant question, but so you really need to focus on what type of coding you want to do. Because if you're a JavaScript programmer, you're a web developer, there's no reason to go to Unity, or there's no reason to go to learn Unreal, or like C++ won't help you make a better website necessarily. So you really kind of have to pick what you want to be good at or what you want to focus on, and then go, just Google that and see what pops up. There are courses, again, if you really want to get into some of the specifics. If you're a JavaScript or a React developer, you want to know about React, I would say probably go to like one of those Udemy courses or whatnot. And one of those other, it used to be called lynda.com. I think LinkedIn bought them now. So I don't know what their courses, I haven't gone to look at their courses recently, but something like that. And then try to find a community, Google questions about where people search for these things, if they're communities, and then see if you can find some answers in there, or talk to people, maybe a Discord or a Slack community or whatnot, and see if you can kind of wade through it that way. Because what's good for one person won't be good for another person necessarily. There's code standards, but the code, like something like Python, looks completely different than C++ than looks like C#. So you kind of have to know what it looks like, or kind of what your syntaxes are beforehand. So yeah, it's kind of a weird answer, but I think it's the best I can do under the circumstances.
Can I add something to that really quickly?
Yeah.
A resource that has definitely been advantageous for me is the public library. If you have a library card, go on there and see what is available through your public library, because LinkedIn Learning, formerly lynda.com, is free at my library. And they have coding and different coding classes. They have language classes if you want to learn a language. Like, start with free first. That's my recommendation.
There you go. Save that bucks. Okay, so for the whole panel, another question: what is your production pipeline like? Are there strategy that your companies use that you wish new people entering your community know ahead of time? Hey, Shaun, let's go.
Nice. All right. This is a really cool question because, like, we've talked a lot, at least I've talked about a lot of doing things. And then once you get into production and you have to, like, work with other people, there are a lot of strategies that you want to keep in mind. As a technical artist, and especially probably Roderick's probably experienced something similar, where you have people just firing at you questions and inquiries and problems and fires from every direction. And so time management skills are actually pretty useful. They can be pretty useful. LinkedIn Learning actually does have a couple of good courses on time management skills that you could potentially get for free. I would say it's that effective collaboration courses on learning how to work with others. There are certain sort of guidelines and best practices out there that actually work, and you might think, oh, it's this business thing, that's generic, that's not game development. Well, it's people, and so if people are involved, people are people no matter where you work. And I think understanding some of those tactics and strategies just make you a much stronger collaborator.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Shaun. The next question is to Joanne. If you have a YouTube channel, for example, how do you transfer those practical skills to working a real job in marketing, brand management, etc.?
I actually love this question because there's so much opportunity to utilize something practical like that and use that for telling stories when you're interviewing, for example. So if I had a YouTube channel, what I would do is a few things that I would do. When I've created content, which presumably you've done some storyboarding, you've written a script, you've decided how to create content, how to edit it. And then when it comes to a marketing content creation space, have you done ads? Have you done affiliate links with Amazon, analytics, huge. What content works? How many views are you getting? Have you done any A/B tests so that you know what resonates with people? There's so much opportunity to experiment. How many followers have you gotten? What tactics have you utilized in order to increase your following? Are you promoting your YouTube channel on other social media channels? All of that stuff is super, super relevant for a career in marketing.
Great. That's great. A lot more questions. I'm trying to go through them, make sure that we cover as much as possible. I have another one for Joanne here. As a person who studied marketing, brand management, and communication, I've listened and I resonate with the things you highlighted that you do on a day-to-day basis. What steps would you recommend I take moving forward in trying to start and move forward with my career with a company like yours?
Yeah, I mentioned this at the beginning, and I would mention it again, is try to get an internship at Electronic Arts or at Ubisoft or at Activision Blizzard. They all have they all have internship programs, and that's the best opportunity to get your feet wet in a low risk environment. And as Shaun mentioned, at Ubisoft and at Electronic Arts, you're going to have real projects that you can then speak to. And it's really the best and easiest way to convert to a full-time position. But there are other ways to get in. You can get in through QA. That is not necessarily the best way, in my opinion, to transition into a marketing career. That can be a little difficult, but yeah, just make sure that you're getting that education, you're taking the classes, you're putting things into practice with the YouTube channel, the way that Shaun mentioned before. Just start doing, and then you have really interesting and compelling stories. And even if you're not if you don't want to start your own YouTube channel, but you're part of the marketing organization at your school, or at your job, whatever that job is, maybe you can start helping them with content creation and doing marketing at your job. Having those stories to talk about, I think is really important when you're doing an interview. I think it's great to have that fundamental knowledge, but if you can speak to something that you've actually done, then that just makes you stand out that much more.
Good. Awesome. Thank you for that. Another more practical one for all of you. What is the process of internship in your field position? So how can someone get an internship and get in? Roderick.
Oh dear, I was going to let you guys do it because you guys talked about internships. I never replied to one. I'm not the best for this one, but I'll hand this off to one of you two.
Maybe Shaun.
Yeah, so for Ubisoft, they have a very specific process, and that's the next showcase, which is sort of an art, or it's just a competition. It's a big competition across different job families. There's different tracks. So there's art track, computer science track, concept art track, animation track. There's probably some other tracks that I'm forgetting there. So definitely look up that link. The way the process works is that there's a few rounds of judging, and then the winners get a paid internship, and you become a member of the production team. I've worked with a few of them, and it's cool working with new people, like they're young and excited and new to the industry. They definitely do bring something to the table. And so I think that's one starting point. The other one I can recommend isn't specifically with my company, is look for smaller companies. Look for mod crews, people that are building stuff collaboratively. Because there's a big difference between building something on your own at home and learning how to work within a group. Games today are just getting bigger and bigger, so it basically takes an army to build the thing, and you have to be able to collaborate with people, work smart. So the more you learn how to work with people earlier and just get that experience, it just makes you better. And I think the last thing I would add is like what Joanne mentioned about the interview, like especially like from a tech art or a developer standpoint, we really like these kind of experiences will equip you that have better interviews. So then for my standpoint, or probably for Roderick as well, what you're looking for is I want to hear, I want to see what you've done, but I also want to understand how much you contribute to that exactly. And then I want to hear about your process. I want to hear what problems you had to solve. How did you go about investigating the solutions to the problem, and hear more about the path of the things that you tried on the way to the solution, and even why you went with the solution. Because oftentimes the perfect solution may never exist, but the solution that helps you get the job done is the best solution.
That's great. Well said. Joanne, yes.
Yeah, well, at Electronic Arts, we have like a generic, internship link. So go to the job boards, apply through there. Also, if you can connect with someone, either from our Next Gen Talent team or anyone that you know who can put you in contact with the Next Gen Talent team, reach out to me. And, I'll look over your resume and tell you, fix this, do that. And then, source it over to that individual. I mean, the only way that you can get the internship is by applying, like it was mentioned before, so it's not quite as involved as a competition and all of that, at least in the marketing track at EA.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add one more thing to there, because everything I'm saying is based on Ubisoft Toronto. And so Ubisoft has a lot of studios around the world, and I would encourage you to Google Ubisoft Internship. So every studio will probably have a slight variation of program there. I do believe some studios do have like a straight internship program. So just Ubisoft, or pretty much any game company, Activision, Blizzard, the big ones are generally going to have a bit more resources to invest in starting and growing a new person. But then don't limit yourself to that, and just look around and see what's out there.
Good. Roderick, yes.
I want to add, just talking about interviews and these things. One thing you mentioned, learning on your own. Try not, when you go to an interview, just to basically don't go to the interview and just only present stuff you've done in school. You really want to work on stuff on your own. One of the sad things happens when you go to an interview and you have, maybe you're hiring a junior position, and there's or you're an internship type of thing, and then there's 10 people who show up and they all show you the exact same project. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing else to see. And then someone says, I'm really enthusiastic about games and I want this and this. And I've seen 10 people to show me the exact same project with the exact same requirements, with the exact same assets. It kind of doesn't show your enthusiasm when I've seen the same thing over and over again. It works for the first person maybe, but everybody else, it gets worse and worse and worse. And you don't know what position in the line you are at. So just do yourself a favor and just learn on your own and try to pick up other projects and do more things. It works out. It's always better for you.
That's great. I'm just going to throw something out there on my side. If you guys don't know, Northern Arena is an esports company. So we do esports events. We do broadcast shows. So we produce TV shows, and we have an esports team. And the reason why I say that is we're looking also for interns. So if the esports world is something that is interesting to you, hit me up on LinkedIn. So I just wanted to say that to add that. Okay, so I know that we don't have a lot of time, and I know that Lucy wants to close this great panel. I just want to say thank you to all of you for being part of this panel. Obviously, it's been great talking to you and learning more about what you do. So Joanne Pollard, brand manager at Madden NFL game for Electronic Art, Roderick Nevers, software engineer for Snowden Studios, and Shaun Jennings, technical art director at Ubisoft. Thank you for your time and your great insight in the gaming industry. So with that, I would leave it to Lucy for the closing remarks. I'm Carl-Edwin Michel. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Great moderation, Carl-Edwin. Thank you to our panelists, Joanne, Roderick, and Shaun. Your panel was very inspiring, and your insights and advice, they will make a difference. So the other thing I want to tell you, and you're going to be able to see the links in the comments, on our website, on Interactive Ontario's website, Joanne, Shaun, and Roderick, they have agreed to talk about the career. So you can find video interviews of them, explaining how to get to their career and sharing their experience. The other thing that we have on our website are 2 modules. One of them is to help you create a great resume and LinkedIn profile. And the other one is to help you build a very impactful digital portfolio. And there will be more over the next year. So I really encourage you to go there and leverage those resources. I also want to thank our presenting partners, the Ontario Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism, as well as Ubisoft Toronto. And big thank you to Hannah and the Interactive Ontario team. Thank you so much. That was a great panel, and the next 2 days are going to be providing awesome opportunities to people. So now it's time for you to reach out to employers participating in the hiring fair. Check out the positions that they are offering, whether it's for internships or jobs or contracts. And don't be shy to ask for meetings. They're here because they are looking for people. And as the panelist said, ask them questions. So my parting words to you are, go for it. Thank you. Bye all.